Hey everyone, this is Professor Preiksaitis, and I wanted to give you an audio lecture with some video of a PowerPoint presentation just to talk to you a little bit about brainstorming. Your chapter 6 in the Mr. Dubrin textbook also has sections that talk about brainstorming, and most of the information that I'm going to discuss with you today is also in the textbook. However, I thought this might just give you some brief ideas about why brainstorming is a path to group creativity and why we're going to do it this week in your discussion section. One of the things that brainstorming can do in a work situation is to help solve problems. We're going to talk about problem solving during this term in a general sense, and during a conflict resolution process in our discussions later in the term, we'll solve a problem together in talking about how a conflict resolution is actually problem solving. When you brainstorm to problem solve, however, it's a way that you can bring all your group members, either on your team or your department, together and try and come up with multiple solutions for a problem. This could be in a setting where everyone passes around ideas about a specific problem, and then it tries to improve on each other's ideas. Sometimes when you brainstorm to solve a problem, multiple ideas can be combined into a better solution. And when you do this, everyone feels that they're part of the process, which creates buy-in. Buy-in is when everyone in the team feels like they had a part in a solution, and therefore psychologically they are more tied to helping see that solution come about. This is an actual psychological factor that has been proven in many research cases. So some methods for brainstorming include in-person meetings. Sometimes you'll have one person up at a whiteboard and everyone in the audience is throwing out ideas and that person at the whiteboard is trying to jot them all down. Or you might just have a note taker or someone with a tape recorder or recorder on their iPhone where they're jotting down and keeping track of people's ideas. I've often found that in-person meetings, like using a Skype meeting or a freeconferencecall.com conference, can actually be a better way to solicit ideas and to keep track of them. What I try to do is create a situation where people can raise their hand during the meeting, and I can control who's speaking at what time, and therefore people aren't speaking over each other. If you're doing that in a regular in-person situation, it can be helpful if you have everyone take their turn when they're getting ideas. Or another way is to break a large group into smaller groups, and I've found this to be quite helpful in the past, and have each group come up with one or two good ideas, and then each mini group selects a leader to come up and present those ideas to the larger group. And then those bigger ideas are the ones that then you brainstorm as a group and talk through how can we make those ideas better. Brainwriting is a form of brainstorming, but it's often done alone, and it's when a person sits down with a piece of paper or at the computer and just starts jotting down ideas that might solve a problem, or that might be a creative idea, or looking for a creative idea to handle some sort of issue that's come up. Often this is done alone, but groups can also do this, and I've actually seen this done in creative writing projects during school, creative writing in college or creative writing in high school, where a teacher will start a piece of paper and have one student write the beginning of a story and then move it through the whole group until by the end of the group a very large cohesive story is written, but each person has had a say in a paragraph or two of that story, which can be a lot of fun. Also, if you use brainwriting methods before or after a brainstorming session, this can actually really start honing ideas down. And one of the ways that you do it beforehand is that the leader of the brainstorming session sends out the topic of the session to everyone that's going to be there at the brainstorming session, perhaps a day or two ahead of time, and asks for written ideas. Then at the brainstorming session, those written ideas are provided to everyone, or possibly emailed to everyone maybe an hour or two before brainstorming, so that the next level of brainstorming occurs instead of just initial ideas, actual implementation methods or process ideas, or what's this actually going to look like, can start becoming part of the brainstorming process during that meeting. Creative and critical thinking is something that we want to talk about as part of brainstorming and as part of brainwriting. Creative thinking is when you are trying to find a new way to do something or solve problems in a new way. Being creative means coming up with something new, different, maybe even just a tweak on something that's been done before, like dishwashers that have been around forever, but someone comes up with the idea that instead of it being a door that pulls down, it's a drawer that pulls out. Refrigerators that are up at eye level versus down on the ground, or maybe are down on the ground instead of up at eye level. Possibly refrigerator drawers versus doors. All of these ideas are things that take an old idea and make it new. Cell phones are an old idea of the line telephone that became new, and it's something we carried around. When they originated, they were in large bags. We call them bag phones. Now they're tiny handheld computers that do much more than just speak to people and have actually become quite powerful tools. Many people think that in 50 to 100 years, those are going to be embedded in our skin. We're going to actually just have in our bodies the ability to communicate with others through thinking or through silent measures that are actually part of our genetic systems. All of these are creative ideas. Thinking critically is when we look for holes or problems with logic, methods, or processes to either avoid or fix problems. So for example, that idea that I just said that others have come up with, where eventually we're going to actually have this phone or internet linkage within our bodies. Thinking critically about that, we have to ask ourselves, what kind of privacy issues are those going to create? Will we even have privacy? Will privacy be something that human beings in 100 or 200 years even care about? So that's where thinking critically is different from thinking creatively. I hope that you've enjoyed this mini audio video lecture. This is a test, and I might be doing another one of these this term, so I hope that you've enjoyed it.